Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to the Friday morning Pardo Popoff connection. Martin Popoff in the co-captain's chair. Good morning, my friend. How are you today?
Yes, doing okay. Sorry, I had to scramble there for a second, close my messenger so we don't get dings going off. So.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I remember I used to struggle
But I'm
with
ready.
that too.
I'm ready.
When I first started doing the
good.
show all those years ago, it's like I just never kind of figured out the technology and everything. So I would have Outlook or whatever I was using. Every time I would get an email, you would hear ba-ding, ba-ding, and the viewers would be like, "Pete, what's all that beeping going on?" I'm like, "I have no idea. What is it?" I eventually found out what it was.
Closed everything else. So I might have to close a few more things here. Hang on. Okay. So yeah, I think we're good to go. All right.
Cool. So Uriah Heep today, deep cut dive. So Martin and I first started talking about this about a month ago, and originally Martin was like, "Oh my God, they have so many albums and so many eras and vocalists and lineup," and it's like, but then after a week or two, I think I kind of beat him down a little bit, and he was willing to take the dive into this particular episode. So we've each picked 5 deep tracks from throughout the career. And again, let's be honest here. This is not a band with a lot of hit singles, but this is a band who has their signature songs that they play live all the time, that are on all the live albums, that are on the greatest hit sets. We know what they all are. So we're not going to talk about Easy Living today or Gypsy or, Steeler and, whatever. But so many albums to choose from. We've got a handful of great vocalists who have fronted this band, and this is a perfect band to look at in terms of kind of eras, right? So we've got the legendary David Byron era. We've got John Lawton. We've got Peter Golby. Then we've got the Bernie Shaw era, and all really, really fine, in my opinion, and lots of nuggets in this catalog. So I'm going to have Martin kick us off with his first choice.
Yeah. Okay. So as Pete was saying, I mean, I kept putting this off because there is so much to go through, right? And then I figured, okay, so the way I'm going to do this is I will check on stuff to see if they played it live a lot or if it was a single or whatever. Because the first track that came to mind was "Gotta Talk About One Way or Another," one of my favorite Heep songs. And then I look it up and it's a single, so I figure, okay, maybe I shouldn't be including that or whatever. Because I remember what you and I went through when I picked "Touch Too Much," right, from the AC/DC Deep Cut Dive. And I said, oh, that was a single in the UK. It's like, they never played it on the radio in Canada. That's
not here. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well.
Yeah, so
anyways, I will say before you go on, "One Way or Another" is a terrific song. Absolutely terrific
God,
song.
I love that song. Yeah, with John Wetton's kind of breathy vocal on that. Oh man, it's totally one of my favorite. And that counterpoint guitar, I love it so much. So but my first one is probably my most contentious in terms of like, is this a deep enough dive? So I went from "Look at Yourself." There's some vinyl of it. I went with "Shadows of Grief." And I looked this up.
Great.
Love it so much. It literally is my favorite Uriah Heep song. And when I talked to King Diamond from Merciful Fate, he said it was his favorite Uriah Heep song. So that was really cool. And I did look it up. I mean, it doesn't seem to be played a lot live, if ever. I don't know the if ever on most of these bands when it comes to what they played live. It doesn't seem to be on their greatest hits a lot. I just think this song is so spooky and progressive, and the drumming. I mean, on this, we've got Paul Newton on bass and Ian Clark on drums. So it's not even the classic lineup, "Look at Yourself." And it is probably my number one favorite Uriah Heep album. One thing I love about this song and this album in particular, and I've always said this, is the production on this record is just crushingly beautiful. I mean, the bass, the mid-range, the treble. I maintain that this is the production that Deep Purple wished they ever got. The closest they ever got, I think, was Machine Head, but they never got a pristine, gorgeous sound with that Hammond organ and Mick Box mind meld so beautifully, and the bright drums as Uriah Heep got on this album. So this is the greatest produced album. And this song, it goes through the spooky, progressive, mellow part, with the high falsetto vocals. It's got the part where the verse comes back in and they punctuate the dun, 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 on a couple of verses later on in the track. David Byron's performance is amazing. And yeah, this Ian Clark drumming, a killer drumming on it. Super long song. So I had to pick it because it is my favorite Uriah Heep song. And fortunately, I hope, cross fingers, it's deep enough for your viewers. There you go.
It's deep enough for me. And Martin, if I can get you to hold up that album again, the LP,
yeah.
I just want people to take a look at this. How cool is that? Right? It's got the mirror on the front. I mean, it doesn't get much cooler than that. And that is my favorite Uriah Heep album of all time. And that song that you just picked is one of my favorite Uriah Heep songs of all time. It's definitely like a top 5 or top 10 for me. So I love that pick. And I don't think they play that live a lot. I think that's one that was played maybe sporadically, but if at all. So great choice. I'm going to go, I decided for this to kind of go past those first like 4 or 5 albums because there's so many killer memorable songs on there, and I was like, all right, I could do a lot of choices from those albums, but I figured I was going to go a little bit further, so I'm going to go with the 1973's Sweet Freedom album, which another really, really strong one. I'm going to go with the very last song. It doesn't get much deeper, called Pilgrim. It's 7.5 minutes. It's really proggy. It's got the roaring Hammond organ. It's got some cool piano in it. Big Gary Thane bass lines. I mean, what an incredible bass player he was. You got Mick Box with the screaming wah-wah guitar solos, big heavy riffs, David Byron wailing away. It's got Lee Kerslake just pounding all over the place on the drums. An underrated gem that no one ever talks about from this album. And I think this album has a couple of really good deep cuts, but I decided to go as deep as possible in the album. So Sweet Freedom is the album. Pilgrim is my choice. If you haven't heard it, check it out. I think especially those who like the more epic proggy side of Uriah Heep, I think it's a perfect choice.
Yeah, I almost went with that too, and I think that's the second best produced Uriah Heep album. Just so muscular, you know. Down. Oh man, it's such a heavy production on that.
Yeah, Dreamer's another great song on here. Title track.
Yeah. It literally heavies up the writing. I mean, the writing is not super heavy metal, but the production is so crushing that it raises the level of the writing to a heaviness. Okay, so to adjust, if people didn't think my first cut was deep enough, I went super deep and didn't even go with this album. I went with a B-side from this album, the B-side of the song Prima Donna. Called Shout It Out. Now this song, I actually went through a bunch of the B-sides because I knew that I didn't think there were that many that I loved, but Shout It Out, the B-side of Prima Donna, is so crushing and heavy. It's got this really cool riff. It's slow. Da, 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 da. It's really cool. And the production's really neat. You get that really grinding Hammond organ of Ken Hensley in there. And you know, it's not shouted out loud like Kiss. It sounds like the name of a party rock song. It's definitely not. It's super doomy. Yeah. You know how people always are quick to say, oh, that song's better than the things on the album and it should have gone on there. I actually believe that about this one. I usually, that's one of my pet peeves. I don't like saying that. And also sometimes bands don't put B-sides on albums because they're really good, but they sound too similar to something they've done. And this really doesn't sound that similar to anything they've done. And you know, it should have been called The Day I First Met My Love, which is what he says through it. And it certainly does not sound like a typical Sappy Pete ballad either. Yeah, it's so heavy. And you know, it's just like later on, he just like tosses off, oh, shout it out, you know, a couple of times. So the title makes no sense whatsoever because it's this crazy, slow, doomy Heep song. So there you go. Super deep to adjust from my first one if it wasn't deep enough.
There you go. Yeah, I remember when I bought one of the remastered editions of that album, and then they threw that on there. I was like, where has this been all my life, right? Because they actually, from the 70s albums there, if you know, I mean, a lot of bands from the 70s did this as they kept reissuing and remastering these albums on CD. They would go throw in these B-sides and leftover tracks and whatnot. And in a lot of instances, you got some real gems there, and that is absolutely one of them.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to go fast forward a couple of years to 1977, the first album with John Lawton on vocals replacing Mr. David Byron, Firefly from 77. A song kicks off the album called The Hanging Tree. Very kind of atmospheric, lots of synths. Trevor Bolder on bass, fine bass player, so he, of course, replaced the late Gary Thane. Love Lawton's vocals on this album and this song in particular. He's got a very different voice from Byron, and Lawton still has like Pipes of Doom if you've heard him in recent years. It's got heavy riffs, but it's not like the heaviest song, but it's got the chorus is really emotional. Just a really good kind of like proggy, somewhat heavy atmospheric song to kick off this album, which I dig the Lawton albums. They're a bit different from the earlier albums, but there's plenty of good material on them. So Hanging Tree, or The Hanging Tree. That's my choice.
Excellent. Very cool. Okay, so for my third choice, I went with this album, Fallen Angel. There's a vinyl version of it. I went with Falling in Love, which I believe, second track on the album. I love John Lawton too. His vocals are amazing. I listened to your past Heep stuff, and you sort of are of the opinion he doesn't have a lot of David Byron to him. I think he's got a lot of David Byron to him. So I think that tone, he doesn't his phraseology isn't like Byron, but I think he's got the same sort of tone. And you're right, he didn't look the part. He had the short hair and the balding and the frizziness, right? And all that stuff, right? But this record, I really like this record because the production is super tight. The playing, I mean, it sounds not so much 70s. It's got a little bit of this sort of 80s discipline to it. And this song, I just love. Heep does this a lot. It starts with chorus. They do a lot of songs where they start with chorus and then they collapse into the verse. And I love the complex vocal arrangement of it. It's the first one that sticks in my mind anytime I think about this album. I even wrote up this album for one of my old books where I did these essays on one album at a time, this Ye Olde Metal series thing, because it is my favorite of all of these. And then I love the way the verse kind of gets this different melody going, and then it has sort of an end to it where there's, I don't know, what is 3 kinds of strife, something like that, right? 2 kinds of something, 3 kinds of and then it collapses into the chorus again. So yeah, just a really cool, quite heavy song off of this album. That's a pretty heavy album as well, right? We got Woman of the Night was pretty heavy on it. What else is pretty heavy? I'm
Alive. Yeah, I almost went with I'm Alive, actually.
Oh, yeah?
I like that a lot. Yeah, that's a good album.
Yeah, so there you go.
And I was reading up, too. The guy who drew that album cover is the same guy who drew Love Hunter by Whitesnake.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot that story. Yep.
Yeah, pretty cool album cover.
A lot of people got tattoos of that one.
Yeah. Why not, right?
Yeah.
All right, my third choice, I had to pick something from my beloved Abominog. It's one of my favorite Uriah Heep albums of all time, and I listened to this so much when it came out, and I'm wearing the shirt today in honor of it. Martin's probably got his LP he's going to bust out there.
My album over there.
There you go. I love that cover. You got the guys in the back. It doesn't get much better than that. And this was a great lineup. This was a totally reformed, reunited, rejigged Heep, and I think it really worked. The song I'm choosing from this is called Think It Over. Ironically, you got Peter Golby. This is his first album singing with the band. Ironically, the song was written by John Sloman, who was the previous singer on the Conquest album. And they wrote this, or he wrote this song with Trevor Bolder. And ironically, neither one in the band to record the song, which is kind of crazy. But this was supposed to be a song for their next album to follow up Conquest, but then Mick Box basically broke up the band and got all sorts of new blood in the band. But they kept the song. Tremendous Peter Golby vocals. He kind of has this Lou Graham thing going on. But I think it really works. Lots of hooks. It's got this crushing guitar riff to it. John Sinclair's, really bright synths are all over the song. And it's just, I just love that. It's just a kick-ass song, but very commercial. And I think that's what I love so much about this album. And Martin and I have talked about this a lot. It's a really heavy album, but it's so accessible. And it's like Heep, it just supercharged in coming into the 80s, and love it. Like, I could have picked a bunch of songs off of here, although half of it either were released as singles or played live a lot, but that's one that really wasn't, and just totally love it. So Think It Over from Abominog.
Awesome. Yeah, I had to go with that era as well. I love the whole era. I know you're not a big Equator fan, but I'm not an Equator hater. I don't like Equator. I really think this album's super underrated.
Yeah.
Abominog's probably my second favorite Heap album, if not my first. In fact, we did a Contrarians episode, and I think I did call it my first. So I think I did a whole argument about Abominog being the best Uriah Heep album. So it's either that or Look at Yourself for me. But I really like this album too. Yeah. I had no problems with this. This I think has 2 or 3 covers on it, and Abominog has 5 covers on it, I believe, which is pretty interesting. But you know, everything on Abominog just sounds, Heap totally makes it their own with that gritty production and the personality of those players, right? So so I went with The Other Side of Midnight from this, which is the first song on the album. I just think it's just this great party Friday night song. I love Peter Golby's vocals on it. To me, this sounds like the greatest heavy Foreigner song they never wrote. I did want to pick something that they did write, but I just love the way that there's the big pomp rock chorus and the John Sinclair, you know, the keys on there, and the heaviness of the verse. Like it just, you know, it pomps along dee 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 dee, and then it just collapses into the verse part where he sings over it. It just sounds like muscular, heavy Foreigner. And first song on the album, I hope it's deep enough. I don't think it was a single. I believe the singles were Stay on Top on this album and Lonely Nights. I don't like Lonely Nights very much at all, but there's a lot of heavy songs on here, right? Red Lights, that's super fast.
Red Lights is terrific. Yeah, I love Red Lights.
Weekend Warriors, yeah. So yeah, I really I don't like this as much as Abominog, but it certainly fits in the same wheelhouse. And because I just love this era so much, even Equator's got some carryover for me, so I'm fine. So yeah, Other Side of Midnight.
And how about that riff, man? Yeah. I mean, just it kicks off the album like a love it. Love it. Yeah, it's a great choice. All right, I'm going to go, let's see, we're going to go fast forward a little over a decade. Going to go to Sea of Light from 1995 with that splendid Roger Dean artwork right there. A song called Words in the Distance.
Cool, yeah.
Killer chorus. You know, Bernie Shaw just singing up a storm on this album. You know, it's got this whole album, and I think, you know, everything they've done since Bernie joined the band, Bernie and Phil joined the band. I mean, they kept those trademark Heap backing vocals. No matter who's singing for this band, it's like you always have that, which is great. It's got big metallic riffing from Box, Phil Lanzon's organ and synths. You got Boulder and Kearse Lake just locked in on the groove. Just a really heavy rocking song that, again, has those hooks, which we love from this band. And I think this is a really underrated album. And for me, I think this was the start of kind of that late career renaissance for the band that has not stopped to this day. So Words in the Distance is my choice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had to cover off this era too as well. I mean, we've got the you know, starts there, and then actually, yeah. So these are the two that people don't like so much, right? The first two of the whole situation, right?
I like Raging Silence much better than the other one.
Right.
Yeah, I can dig with Raging Silence. Different worlds. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel bad that I only have, I'm down to my last one, and we've got the entire awesome Bernie canon to go here, but I wanted to cover off all those different eras, and we probably even left out some eras with all that, right? So I'm going to go with the latest album, Living the Dream, with Take Away My Soul. Yeah. I just love this song, the way it's like, you know, I've often said that this version of Heap reminds me a little bit of John Anderson's you know, headspace and philosophy, that really like happiness, yes, positivity thing. Heap has the same thing, and you really feel that with the Bernie Shaw lyrics. This one's just a good driving song, great melodies, great transitions between the chords. You know, Russell Gilbrook, you know, just turning in that awesome groove. And then later on, like he's just kind of bashing quietly the crash cymbal throughout the whole thing. Yeah, what my notes when I interviewed these guys about it, what did I say? Brisk, melodic, spiritual. There it is again, heavy bashing cymbals, ass kicking, then gets relaxed and poppy, catchy chorus. I guess the big songs on this were the first two, Grazed by Heaven, Live in the Dream, right? So those are the ones I guess we can't pick as deep cuts. But yeah, just you could have picked stuff from any of these albums, and this is really one of the better ones. Unfortunately, it's the most recent one, Live in the Dream. So yeah, take away my soul.
Yeah, I love it. It's one of my favorites on this album, and I also went with this album for my last choice. And so what I did was I was like, all right, they played a good chunk of this live on the tour, so I was like, all right, let me try and get something that maybe folks who went to see them live, hadn't experienced if they don't have the album. So I went with "Dreams of Yesteryear," which it's the last song on the album, so it's got another splendid Bernie Shaw vocal. It's got big hooks on the chorus. Russell Gilbrook, what an underrated drummer. This guy, he is a powerful, powerful drummer. And, I've had the opportunity to meet him, and he's a small guy, but man, he's built like all muscle, and you can just hear it in his performance on this album. Davey Rimmer's bass, nice and melodic on here. You got the atmospheric guitars and organs from Box and Lanzon. It's kind of proggy. It's got a kind of cool, nice fade out. The last 2 minutes of the song just kind of keep repeating the lines and just fading out. Very, very cool song. And that's the one I went with from this album. I almost picked It's All Been Said as well, but man, anything on Rocks in the Road, just, Take Away My Soul, Knocking at My Door, all really great songs. And since it's the most recent album, you can kind of call anything on here deep, I guess, because there's probably some folks who haven't heard it yet. But if you haven't, you need to check this out. One of my favorite albums from recent Heep. Just fantastic.
And you mentioned Russell. I mean, the image still in my mind is the combative jam on Magician's Birthday with Mick, right? Mick's just giving her and Russell's just giving her, right? I mean, that was just magical seeing that. And that made me think, Mick is just killing it for his age, right? He's just playing up a storm up there, right? There's just no loose cogs in that live machine of theirs.
There isn't. And what's really great is when you go see Heep live, he's a legend, and he's treated as such, and he absolutely deserves it. He's just like, you go to see Heep, and there he is on the left side of the stage with his black Les Paul, right? And he's got he does all the kind of cool things when he's playing leads and stuff like that and doing all this kind of stuff. And you talk to him, and he's like the humblest guy, and he's so much fun. He's got so many stories. He's just a living legend in rock and roll history. And this whole band is just so talented, so locked in. I just love, and we've talked about this before, just recently, I love seeing a band like this that is just hitting this stride so late in their career, and there's no signs of letting up at all. And I just love it. I just feel so great for them. And it's one thing when you're a big fan and you've been following them for your whole life and all that kind of stuff, but I just feel so proud to be to have had this band in my life, and I've gotten so much enjoyment out of them for 40 some odd years, and they're still cranking it out, and I'm still getting as much enjoyment today as I did back in the late 70s into the 80s.
Yeah. Cool, man. Beautifully put. That was awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Can you tell I love this band, right? I once got into it. I did, though, I don't know, a year or so ago, I did, everybody once said, well, Pete, can you do a show where you list off all your favorite bands, your top 20 favorite bands or whatever it was? So I did that. And Heep is my number 4 favorite band of all time. And they come in just before Led Zeppelin. And I had a handful of people were like, how in the world could anybody pick Heep over Zeppelin as their favorite band? And I'm like, I love Zeppelin. I love them. I like Heep a little bit more. It's every band is special to every individual in a different way. And it's hard to get people to understand that concept sometimes. It's Zeppelin may be the biggest band on the planet for the last, 50 years, but it is highly possible that someone could like another band just a little bit more for various reasons, right? Because we all hear this stuff differently, and it all affects our lives a little bit differently. And Heep has been very, very special for me for a good chunk of my life.
One more point I want to make is that because I often forget this myself, I'm guilty of Rush invented progressive metal, right? I always say that, and then I'm like, I think a little bit about Styx and Kansas, and even The Who with their concept albums, and even Led Zeppelin, all these different bands. But Heep really, really belongs in there because of the Roger Dean album covers, Rainbow Demon and Magician's Birthday, the long songs, the proggy passages, the complex arrangements, the fact that it is heavy and it's doomy and it's very classical and all that stuff. So in a lot of ways, Heep should deserve more credit for the invention of progressive metal, and then even being proto power metal, right? I mean, it's basically it's everything Ronnie James Dio gets credit for before Ronnie arrives, right?
Yeah.
Across the First Rainbow and Rising and Long Live Rock and Roll. I mean, basically that lyrical canon is already set with Heep and the Wizard and all those songs, right? I mean, all that stuff was talked about through Heep first.
Yeah, I mean, that's a topic that comes up quite often. It's like who was kind of like the creator of progressive metal, and yeah, Heap's got to be in that equation along with Rainbow and even some Sabbath stuff, you know, Sabotage and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. I mean, it's in Rush certainly. Yeah, Heap was doing it 71, 72. Yeah. So predates all of it. So
yeah.
So there you go. Another fascinating deep dive into a very, very cool catalog from Martin and myself. In the comments below, please give us some of your favorite deep cuts from some of these classic Uriah Heep albums. The non-hits, the non-played live all the time type of tunes. There's lots of them because we got 20 some odd albums. I forget exactly how many there are. I've lost track. I know it's over 20. Yeah, it's a lot. It's like 23 or 24, I think, something like that. So plenty of good ones. So Martin, what do you got cooking? You got anything hot back in stock or that you're looking to move off the shelves?
Particularly today I'm doing the soul crushing job of trying to pick what pictures are going to go in the third of the Rush trilogy, the Driven, Rush in the 90s and in the End, which comes out in May. So I have to like assemble those 2 8-page photo sections in that. So that's the job now. But no, otherwise anything I have in print is at martinpopoff.com. You can check it out there.
Cool. Sounds good. So what's coming up here on the channel? Might be kind of a quiet weekend. I've got some folks coming for the weekend here, so you guys might not see much of me. Maybe tomorrow morning we'll see, but otherwise come Monday we've got another rant with what I call the Hollywood Squares coming up Monday evening. All sorts of stuff happening next week. We've got couple more deep cut dives and ranking the albums. In fact, Martin's coming back a week from today. We're going to rank the studio catalog of Foreigner, so look forward to that. There's a bunch
Actually, we're set for Monday on that.
Oh, is that Monday? It's Monday. Okay, never mind. It's Friday. See, yeah, that's right. That is correct. So that's Monday. So stay tuned for that, guys, and we'll see you then. Have a good one. And Martin, we'll see you on Monday.
Absolutely.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.